share, and if you have not already, a myriad of sacred pathways to the universal creator. We are an awakening center for spiritual grounding, free thought, self-discovery, and more science, a learning experience for all ages. Tonight, our National Grand Sheik, Taj Tariq Bey, and I are pleased to present 31 USC subsection 3124, exemption from taxation. But before we begin, please be sure to like, share, and if you have not already done so, subscribe to our channel.
And so this is what I mean by proper concepts, civic concepts, understanding patterns, and developing the ability to apprehend what is happening to us with our own government as the overthrow of the republic has come to an official end, and everything is in a reality of transparency, a state of transparency. And so we're going to continue to provide the necessary intelligence to empower and build a stronger, a more brilliant patriot citizenry here at North America. And so enjoy.
Islam,
Islam, Grand Sheik.
All right, Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum. Yeah.
Shalom.
Shalom.
Vadi Makum.
Vadi Makum.
Bon Abot.
Bon Abot.
You know, one of the reasons why we chose this subject, you know, this is just another section of Confused About Taxes, is because they're holding back a lot of the dynamics of what you call the pushback or the effect of what's happening with the dumping of U.S. Treasury bonds that's not being promoted in the mainstream news. The reason I brought this up is many people who are conscious or who have been active, you know, conscious Moors and other Europeans who respect the Republic, who are preserving their estates, are exercising social and political rights, contrary to what most of our people are aware of. And because we're aware of the fact that they're covering up a lot of the actual depression, trying to hold it off till after the corporate election, right?
Mm-hmm.
For themselves. And meanwhile, they've been, as you already know, sending debt notes to two different places,
Mm-hmm.
major places in West Asia and next to Russia,
Mm-hmm.
right? Which is really money laundering operation more than anything else, in real truth, right? Now, while we know that that's not the public feed.
Right.
However, the results of that doesn't remove the fact that it's going to injure a lot of people. This is why I brought this up. Now, relative to inheritances or right of inheritance, and as you already know, people who are national, right, have a natural right of inheritance that has been removed from them under the Sister QV trust operations of the straw man, you know, the 14th Amendment operations,
Mm-hmm.
which has been the standard of operations on the land for decades. And people have been fighting it, you know, with different methods. But what we want to do is give the people some point of research for themselves if they want to do something to help themselves, because we can't do it. And you already know whenever we're having these sessions, we can't literally teach them subject matter.
Right.
It never be allowed. And so a lot of times we'll hit on different things that appear unrelated, appear to be, but they're not. All right. So I want to bring this to your attention. And of course, with some of the original notes, I want you to read this section right here.
Which
Here, and the promotion of the ignorance,
mm-hmm.
right? And then I want you to read this is the Florida House of Representatives. Now, you already know that we have presented this to the people, but they have to understand that this is operative now. And you know, the way people are trained, they think that things that happened in the 1800s has nothing to do with what's going on now. Or things that take place in the 30s has nothing to do with what's going on right now, when that is both not true and it's dangerous for people not to be kept up on that. This is why it's you know, like just like the brother Jalil was going to come on past week, and of course he had some things he had to deal with. Why forbidden civics, and in much of what we talk about is actually forbidden civics, but to comprehend why it's forbidden is what we want to share. And then of course the USC is for those who find themselves tied in the system, particularly when they start discovering that the hedge funds of which their pensions and their 401ks have been tied to have been exhausted and they haven't been notified, right? And so that they've been doing politically with the so-called border FEMA's finances to support that, which was a political action. They want to transfer a part of the problems that people are going to run into on them as if they did it, when actually it's the politicians covering up the fact that the bond system is collapsing. So you know they're not going to take responsibility, and you know because of the system being thoroughly corrupt, they're not going to jail themselves. That's for sure. So for people who have small businesses and people who are conscious of trying to protect the little that they have left, because keep in mind, like I said last month, right? What was going to happen in Florida? That's already taken this. That's already on course, right? Including the flooding, right? Told you there's going to be underwater, but with the houses. So now, so that's one of your major, what you call jewel points for real estate. So what's happening with a lot of Europeans that are in the upper middle class that our people generally aren't aware of because they don't relate, if you get the point. And this is not their kind of news, if you get the point. They're already starting class action suits against the Realtors Association and against the municipalities in collusion with the real estate associations for having all of these years been robbing these people with overassessment in order to tax them. And they've been laundering that finance among themselves, and including with the politicians. And so you already know, because the corruption is so deep, they're not going to fix it, right? That's for real. However, for among the people who are trying to help, and this includes people who are in their venues who are trying to restore the republic, i.e. the law of the land, and those who have been conscious but have not been aware of the weapons that have been used on them and that they are maturing, if you get the point. You know, sort of like an arrow has been shot and people know that these people are doing things to injure us, but we're still preoccupied living every day and don't see the arrow, and we're bringing it to their attention. All right, so I want you to read that and to put the people in the concept of mind of why we chose this, right, as this subject right now, right, for them to do the research on their own. We're giving them directional studies. All right.
So how much of this?
You're reading? Yeah, you're reading from here into the speech on the floor.
And I'm gonna read all of that.
I'll read it if you can.
I mean, it's like a
because
book.
that's the subject matter.
Y'all, You want me to read the book? Greetings, yeah. Okay.
And of course, it's going to spur questions
Okay.
and concepts in your own mind. Then you'll relate to why we're even talking about this.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I'm starting right here. The constitutions of the several states, as a requirement of being part of the union, must by law establish, support, and maintain a, quote, republican form of government, end quote. All of the states under the United States are republics and remain in harmony with the national constitution. This is basic to the state's political capacities to be accepted into the United States as a member state of the Union. No state constitution can be at variance with or be in conflict with the federal national constitution, being the quote unquote supreme law of the land, or of and for the United States of North America. The Constitution is the quote unquote supreme law of the land. This is to preserve the integrity of the people's freedom and liberties with the anciently descended spirit, quote, of preserving, quote unquote, justice. The Constitution for the United States Republic sets the tone, the guidelines, and the spirit for all de jure and legitimate laws and legislation. Thus, the Constitution is the supreme national political covenant and binding contract between the people and the rightfully sanctioned government, which is in place for securing the inalienable rights of the people. For under our republican form of government, the people sanction to be governed. The Constitution prescribed and written jurisdictional authorizations, delegation of authority orders, DOAOS, are thusly and actually conditional and restricting licenses issued by the people through the Constitution, limitations and oath bound conditions and restrictions. This constitutes the limited authorities granted from the people to those chosen persons in government by virtue of its republican form and structure. Promotion of ignorance. See Article 4, Section 4. Upon these aforesaid lawful documents, DOAOs, the elected officers and officials are bound to act and to carry out their specified and limited fiduciary duties. This consciousness about obligations and duties should allay any claims about faults or misunderstandings to indistinctiveness. The officers' specified delegations clearly describe certain limited powers and authorities under designated departments made to allay any claims of faults to indistinctiveness. It clearly delegates certain limited powers and authority under designated departments of government outside of the aforesaid limited delegated power, lawful, ethical, or rightful reason to exist. A government that does not rightfully nor lawfully represent and serve the people has no authority nor right to tax the people. An office is an assigned or delegated position, duty, or function specified within a structured social order, body politic, or government, with synonyms being appointment, place, post, position, situation, etc. Thus, an office commonly suggests a position of public trust, of duty, or of authority. Officer. Officer is an incumbent of and by prescribed constitutional manner elected to or invested with an office, one who is charged by a superior power particularly by government, with the authority and specified duty of exercising certain functions within that said social order or government. If persons holding public office or seats of government supersede or act outside of the designated parameters of the written constitution, contract, and or violate the limited delegated powers described by their particular office and department to which they are oath bound, then criminality is their charge. If the people become lax or passive in their neglect of preserving the republic, then corruption can be expected to run rampant and prove to be detrimental to the people. That same limit delegated sovereign authority of the government or people, dedicated to the service of the people, if abused, would, could, and is often turned against them like a foreign enemy or foreign jurisdictional tyranny. This is why delegation of authority orders, DOAO, are deemed an important documented part of all and any quote unquote legitimate government. Violations made against these quote unquote right protecting governmental principles becomes evident when one reads the Constitution. It will reveal where and why the monopoly, quote unquote, monopoly party politicians have been self-centered, wishy-washy, getting rich at the people's expense. Unchecked, the politicians are wantonly doing whatever they please in contradiction to this. Is why the supreme law is in place to protect the people from such arrogant perfidy. Now, this is the Trafficant letter,
Yes.
which Grand Sheik is often referred to. United States of North America, Speaker Representative James Trafficant Jr., Ohio, addressing the House of Representatives. Mr. Speaker, this is a small type. Mr. Speaker, we are here now in Chapter 11. Members of Congress are, I can't even see this, this is so small, are official trustees presiding over the greatest reorganization of any bankrupt entity in world history, the U.S. government. We are setting forth, hopefully, a blueprint for our future. There are some who say it is a coroner's report that will lend to our demise. Okay. It is an established fact that the United States federal government has been dissolved by the Emergency Banking Act, March 9th, 1933, 48 Statute 1, Public Law 89-7119, declared by President Roosevelt being bankrupt and insolvent, HJR, House Joint Resolution 192, 73rd Congress, in session, June 3rd, is that a third or five? 5th. Is that a 5? 1933. Joint resolution to suspend the gold standard and abrogate the gold clause, dissolve the sovereign authority of the United States and the official capacities of all United States governmental offices, officers, and departments, and is further evidence that the United States federal government exists today in name only. The receivers of the United States bankruptcy are the international bankers via the United Nations, the World Bank, and the International Monetary Fund. All United States offices, officials, and departments are now operating within a de facto status in name only under emergency war powers, with the constitutional Republican form of government now dissolved. The receivers of the bankruptcy have adopted a new form of government for the United States. This new form of government is known as a democracy, being an established socialist/communist order under a new governor for America. This act was instituted and established by transferring and or placing the office of the Secretary of Treasury to that of the governor of the International Monetary Fund. Public Law 94-564, page 8, section HR 13955 reads in part, the U.S. Secretary of Treasury receives no compensation for representing the United States. Gold and silver was such a powerful money during the founding of the United States, little small u, small s, of America, that the founding fathers declared that only gold or silver coin can be quote unquote money in America. Since gold and silver coinage were heavy and inconvenient for a lot of transactions, they were stored in banks and a claim check was issued as a money substitute. People traded their coupons as money or currency. Currency is not money, but a money substitute. Redeemable currency must promise to pay a dollar equivalent in gold or silver money. Federal Reserve notes, FRNs, made no such promises and are not quote unquote money. A Federal Reserve note is a debt obligation of the federal United States government, not money. The federal United States government and the U.S. Congress were not and have never been authorized by the Constitution for the United States of America to issue currency of any kind, but only lawful money, gold and silver coins. It is essential that we comprehend the distinction between real money and paper money substitute. One cannot get rich by accumulating money substitutes. One can only get deeper into debt. We, the people, no longer have any quote unquote money. Most Americans have not been paid any quote unquote money for a very long time, perhaps, and not in their entire life. Now, do you comprehend why you feel broke? Now, do you understand why you are bankrupt along with the rest of the country? Federal Reserve notes, FRNs, are unsigned checks written on a closed account. FRNs are an inflatable paper system designed to create debt through inflation, which is devaluation of currency. Whenever there is an increase of the supply of a money substitute in the economy without a corresponding increase in gold and silver backing, inflation occurs. Inflation is an invisible form of taxation that irresponsible governments inflict on their citizens. The Federal Reserve Bank, who controls the supply and movement of FRNs, has everybody fooled. They have access to an unlimited supply of FRNs, paying only for the printing cost of what they need. Federal Reserve notes are nothing more than promissory notes for U.S. Treasury securities, T-bills, a promise to pay the debt to the Federal Reserve Bank. There is a fundamental difference between quote unquote paying and quote unquote discharging a debt. To pay a debt, you must pay with value or substance, i.e. gold, silver, barter, or commodity. With Federal Reserve notes, you can only discharge a debt. You cannot pay a debt with a debt currency system. You cannot reservice a debt with a currency that has no backing in value or substance. No contract in common law is valid unless backing in common law, make sure, unless it involves an exchange of quote unquote good and valuable considerations. Unpayable debt transfers power and control to the sovereign power structure that has no interest in money, law, equity, or justice because they have no such wealth already. I mean, no, because they have so much wealth already. Their lust is for power and control. Since the inception of central banking, they have controlled the fates of nations. The Federal Reserve System is based on the canon law and the principles of sovereignty protected in the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. In fact, the international bankers used a canon law trust as their model, adding stock and naming it a joint stock trust. The U.S. Congress had a quote unquote person to duplicate a quote unquote joint stock trust in 1873. The Federal Reserve Act was legislated post facto to 1870, although post facto laws are strictly forbidden by the Constitution. The Federal Reserve System is a sovereign power structure separate and distinct from the federal United States government. The Fed or maritime insurance underwriter to the federal United States, operating exclusively under Admiralty maritime law. The lender or underwriter bears the risk, and the maritime law compelling specific performance in paying the interest or premiums are the same. Assets of the debtor can also be hypothecated to pledge something, which means to pledge something as a security without taking possession of it as security by the lender or underwriter. The Federal Reserve Act stipulated that the interest on the debt was to be paid in gold. There was no stipulation in the Federal Reserve Act for ever paying the principal. Prior to 1913, most Americans owned clear allodial title to property free and clear of any liens or mortgages until the Federal Reserve Act 1913 hypothecated all property within the federal United States to the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve, in which the trustees were stockholders held legal title. United States citizen, tenant, franchisee was registered as a quote unquote beneficiary of the trust via his or her birth certificate. In 1933, the federal United States hypothecated all of the present and future properties, assets, and labor of their quote unquote subjects, the 14th Amendment U.S. citizen, to the Federal Reserve System. In return, the Federal Reserve System agreed to extend the Federal United States Corporation all the credit, or quote unquote money substitute it needed. Like any other debtor, the federal United States government had to assign collateral and security to their creditors as a condition of the loan. Since the federal United States didn't have any assets, they assigned the private property of their quote unquote economic slaves, the U.S. citizens, as collateral against the unpayable federal debt. They also pledged the unincorporated federal territories, national parks, forests, birth certificates, and nonprofit organizations as collateral against the federal debt. All has already been transferred as payment to the international bankers. Unwittingly, America has returned to its pre-American Revolution feudal roots, whereby all land is held by a sovereign, and the common people had no rights to hold allodial title to property. Once again, we the people are the tenants and sharecroppers, renting our own property from a sovereign in the guise of the Federal Reserve Bank. We the people have exchanged one master for another. This has been going on for over 80 years. At the time of this writing, without a voice protesting loud enough. Now it's easy to grasp why America is fundamentally bankrupt. Why don't more people own their properties outright? Why are 90% of Americans mortgaged to the hilt and have little or no assets after all debts and liabilities have been paid? Why does it feel like you are working harder and harder and getting less and less? We are reaping what has been sown, and the results of our harvest is a painful bankruptcy and a foreclosure on American property, precious liberties, and a way of life. Few of our elected representatives in Washington, D.C. have dared to tell the truth. The federal United States is bankrupt. Our children will inherit this unpayable debt and the tyranny to enforce paying it. America has become completely bankrupt in world leadership, financial credit, and its reputation for courage, vision, and human rights. This is an undeclared economic war, bankruptcy, and economic slavery of the most corrupt order. Wake up, America. Take back your country.
Now, it's not new to us, but I want to say this. That's current affairs. Now, what do they have people doing now? Fighting each other, right?
Mm-hmm.
Arguing about parties, right?
Mm-hmm.
Between Trump and President Harris, right?
Mm-hmm.
So President Harris had a few debates.
Vice President, VP. Okay.
President Harris.
President. Oh, okay.
President Harris. See, I'm talking
reality.
I'm telling the truth.
What's really going on? Okay.
No, I'm telling the truth.
Okay.
All right. I'm not saying what
they're saying.
I'm telling the truth.
All right.
But since that's of interest, let me qualify.
Mm-hmm.
The law, because remember, what you just read is what's going on. Right?
Yes.
You also recognize in the nature of what you just read, but you're reading it for them. This stuff we already know. We've been teaching this for.
Now, this was what? This was on March 17th,
93.
93. So my solar return
Mm-hmm.
in 1993.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Now look at people are in right now, and others arguing about Trump and arguing about President Harris, not even knowing that she's President Harris, thinking that she's Vice President Harris because they.
Right.
Right. Now, this stuff we've been sharing with people for years. How many people will argue with us or criticize us or troll us simply because we know this and we speak on it, and politicians don't speak on it? So they look at us as being out of order, out to lunch, not being honest. Meanwhile, the masses are following their own enslavement and bankruptcy without knowing it. And they're working every day. They're investing in the system, not knowing they don't own anything. They think they do. Now, from a point of our conversation, me knowing this even before this is one of the reasons. Now, I have multiple skills.
Mm-hmm.
And many people say to me, with the skills you have, Taj, why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? Why do you keep your life so simple? Because I already know what's going on. It's not that the temptation ain't there, but I refuse to get on the hamster wheel and then still have it taken from me while the people won't support the truth. See, because if the people won't support the truth, we have no protection.
Mm-hmm.
And the more we invest in the system, the more we're investing in our own enslavement, not understanding that we are enslaved. Now, we know it's connotated, but we actually are. That's not opinion. Now, point I'm making, many of our people who are still on the hamster wheel right now, because remember, a lot of people that didn't believe us 2 years ago or 5 years ago or more, even though many people, you don't expect them to call Dr. G and say, Dr. G, you told us this 11 years ago over the House of Reawakening Minds. You've had multiple lessons, and, you know, I'm glad you didn't say, we told you so. We're not trying to tell them so.
Yeah.
We're trying to help if they're willing to be helped. But only they can do it, meaning that we can't fix for people what they won't fix for themselves. We're collectively paying the price. Drew Ali said in 28, 25, 26, 27, 28, he said, help me in my great missionary work to bring my people back into the constitutional fold of government, enforcing our Constitution for the United States of America, right? Now, of course, the Constitution, Article 6, Article 3, Section 1 and 2 and 3, Article 6, Article 4, Section 4, Article 1, Section 10 establishes the obligations of those operatives to us.
Yeah, I noticed. Now, yeah, I noticed when I was reading, as many times as you have mentioned Trafficant letter, I never, it's different when you're reading it, because you're not only hearing it.
Have to remind yourself.
So after all those years you've been saying it, now I'm listening and seeing exactly what he was saying in terms of what the responsibility is of government, as it should be, as a republic form of government, to the people, that they are working, if you will, on the behalf of the people, which they've switched around. Obviously,
they flipped
the script, and we are listening, and we're being told what to do, what not to do. We're having liberties taken.
Well, actually, even deeper, he's talking about the monetary policy. Okay, think about where he shifted. He said, okay, prior to so he said prior to 1913, American people held a allodial title over their property. So there was no property tax. We had a allodial title. Today, 90+%, they losing their property to mortgage foreclosures and tax foreclosures. So he's saying they didn't switch everything. Article 1, Section 10 was switched around. He said it. James Trafficant said they didn't created a new form of government, which is going to be a coroner's report for our demise. Basically saying we setting ourselves up for our own suicide under this new form of government called a democracy. Okay, so he was calling them out. He was talking about, and then he gave the history in that speech. Said, look, prior to 1913, this is what was going on. You got sold out with the Federal Reserve Act of 1913. The republic was sold out, and the system went bankrupt. And ever since then, you've been dealing with bankrupt instruments, and all you can do is accumulate more debt. And this is how you got to what they refer to as devaluation and hyperinflation, which caused you to be in a $36 trillion deficit today, enslaved to the Federal Reserve. So imagine that. So it was wow, it was groundbreaking. Like he said, that was in 93. He was giving the message. And that sounds like right now. That's current events, as they say. That's powerful. That was a powerful element on this holy day, because it brings us to more and more awareness on what's happening and what's been happening. But you got to have a history. You got to see the build up that fostered today's events. The past matters. Like you said, the things in the 1800s matter. We think it don't matter today. It do matter. Imagine it was set up in 1871, February 21st, with the incorporation of the District of Columbia. We have at a different time, but all of these events are in alignment. Nothing is a coincidence. And so them knowing this, you got to think about that. Federal Reserve, 1913. Then by 1929 through 1933, you had the Great Bankruptcy of the United States, which is James Trafficking is talking about how the system switched over. And it did it covertly, right? And it did it covertly and subtle, where the American people, it just didn't even catch on to that reality. And it was calling it the bank holidays and reopened the bank without the money in it. What happened to the America's money? What happened to the America's wealth? These notes are supposed to be redeemable in gold and silver upon demand in the locale. You know, as the brother talked about, the president, the executive branch, they don't have a delegation of authority order to overthrow the Constitution. The Constitution is the delegation of authority order. And if you're not in compliance, and that's why it was important to break the functions down, give you that, what you call the forbidden knowledge, the forbidden civics, that you prohibited from having a discussion around, for the empowerment of the citizenry, the nationals, the people, to have a stronger government, to have a stronger nation, a more productive nation, a nation that's able to do some amazing things, but not under these constraints, these unconstitutional policies. And so it's deep. It's deeper. It ain't just, this is what, nah, man, look, what system is that? That's a system that I've been talking about on the earlier episode today. That foreclosing economy, that's a foreclosing economy. That's a hostile economy guised as capitalism, the free market, the free world. No, man, that's an enslavement operation. First of all, they negotiating with debt. Where is the wealth? And so the more Federal Reserve notes that the country demands, right, the greater that's an increase to the interest on the loan. So we got to continue to pay back this interest, right? Trillions of dollars, 36 trillions of dollars. And how long does that take? How many generations is subjected to the interest payments on the loans from the Federal Reserve notes for the Federal Reserve notes from the central bank, the Federal Reserve. So we're actually subject to the Federal Reserve. That's the sovereign. So that's what he means by they hypothecated, right? Via the Federal Reserve Act, they hypothecated the properties, the birth certificates, the nonprofits, the non-GEOs as collateral for the loan and the interest on the loan to guarantee a repayment. That was the guarantor. And so again, we've been operating as a nation, as a federal, really converted over to a corporation, bankrupt entity on the world stage. And these things that James Trafficking was talking about in 1993 on the congressional floor is a reality in today's current events.
Operating under democracy.
And he's saying that in a real sense, when the government is not functioning as it should, the people have a right.
Now, back up a little bit and identify what you just confirmed. What many people are listening still don't get. You're identifying de facto,
right,
that we refer to, that many people still don't comprehend what we're saying. And some people even take offense of us sharing this information, thinking that we're attacking their interest. It's sort of like what you mentioned sometimes, the Stockholm syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
We're trying to help the people, and many of the same people that we're trying to help and that we could have helped if they had listened, are attacking us.
You can an example might be, say you have a business and you hire, if you will, persons or people to work on your behalf to do certain things, and you give them specific tasks that they and controls or whatever,
and you
whatever
make a contract with them to do
X, Y.
such a work.
You're supposed to do X, Y and Z, or A, B, and C. And then you come to find out that these people are not only not doing A, B, and C, but they're usurping your authority. They're going
and your company, and they're
taking over,
transferred the funds,
yeah,
all the time. Not unlike the issue that we were talking about earlier,
mm-hmm.
about what happened with mail,
mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Now, that's treason. However, we're looking at the wrong and not often adding or identifying that this is treason. We're more or less examining the wrong and the corruption in government without talking the issue of treason. Now, the fact that it has not been addressed for all these generations, everybody's paying for it now. And even some people, just like it says with some of the politicians, they dare not tell the real truth. Why? Because they're guilty for not having said anything.
Right.
Even if they were not directly operative.
And this man lost his life.
Now you understand the motive of the accident on his farm,
mm-hmm.
that years ago I would complain about. Because, I talked to him, I think it was what year, somewhere around the 89, I forget what year, but him, and also a guy that worked for him, right? I forget the exact date, but anyway, so I'm not unfamiliar with him in conversation. That's number one. But the point that I'm making is this: what you just read is the state of political affairs
to this day.
Right. Now, people who are soliciting our people to canvass the community to get people to sign up to vote are not aware that those signatures are used for routing the 12 district areas of the Inquisition Revenue Services, IRS, to the sister QV, having nothing to do with any power of voting what they think they have whatsoever. And the real vote, while they got these people busy thinking that they have some voting rights, right? The Electoral College, owned by a certain group of people who, in this area, one of their major places where they stay is in Brooklyn, New York, with dual citizenship, that have another organization that actually runs the Congress, and they're hiding behind BlackRock, State Street, Vanguard,
JP Morgan,
of which they own. And hold on, what a lot of people don't understand, the General Education Board, that they also own and run. So we're trying to make erudite people who are coming through that system of mind control, not knowing, thinking that these entities are separate. It's not unlike it's not unlike giving the analogy of the tentacles of an octopus and thinking that the different tentacles are not the octopus. This is where, as we were talking about earlier, Dr. G, where many people, remember when I mentioned BlackRock?
Mm-hmm.
And I told you that's the United States.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Who would know right now that the war in Ukraine and in Palestine right now, this is known, this is known, it's not talked about.
Okay.
Are we clear?
Because
remember, a lot of things that we talk about, people think that we're out to lunch. And you can understand that they would if they lack knowing even this fundamental. Now, look at this, Dr. J. If you were in a position as a businesswoman investing in things, right? Say in the auto industry in stock or something like that, or in different venues, and you would see stock prices jumping up and down and giving the appearances of advancement, and yet your actual books would be showing loss after loss after loss, and people would be losing jobs, and the politicians would be saying they added so many jobs to the venue, while in the real world people are losing their jobs, because the reality of it is that on multiple levels businesses are going bankrupt who are not your frontline corporate entities. Not now. Look at this, Dr. G. How many intelligent people moving large levels of finance, right?
Wow.
Don't know what you just read.
I just pulled up something too.
Go ahead.
This is, I wanted to know what boards or where BlackRock's holdings are. Their major corporations or top holdings are Microsoft. I don't know what Nvidia.
Remember, I told you Nvidia a month and a half ago. I told you about that being at the time that I talked about a couple of months ago, and I mentioned that was the only stock that was rising. Every other stock was falling. Now you kind of get concept. Okay. Keep on reading.
Nvidia, Apple, Amazon, and Meta, the Meta platforms that are coming up. New positions, new holdings. LabCorp, where we go get the blood right. Solventum Corporation, Spotify, Merck and Co. And Trump Media and Technology Group Corp. I don't know if that's Trump or what, but and their top industries are legal. You go in and rebuild after the destruction. Okay. And agriculture, production, livestock, and animal specialties.
What did I tell you when I came in here about the farming? Farmers right now are going bankrupt, and they're not informing the public. Now you see how all those tentacles hide under BlackRock?
Yeah.
Hold on. Then you look at the corporate papers that I've been showing people forever. Then we go to Organic Act of Congress 1871 with the overthrow of the Republic. So people who don't comprehend would think that if we're talking Organic Act of Congress, February 2nd, 1871, what does it have to do with now? Like this is another century. This is not related. You're living it.
Yeah.
Now, point of it is, we know that's by training. It's not because people lack intelligence. We've been trained from childhood to respond to emotions distinguished from facts, right? Belief, opinions competing with facts, which are uncomfortable, and then feeling pseudo secured. Pull that up.
You want to pull it up? Well, this, you want to see it? People are so entitled, don't they? Aren't they?
That has nothing to do with it. They're not paying them to us.
What we're saying, I ask you to, we're looking at, we're paying taxes to a de facto government
which means not government. See,
Not government.
now notice how like even
I'm no, before you go there,
that's a legal
I'm
term.
assuming that
Yeah.
this individual
Yeah.
expects to come away from this conversation knowing the who, what, where, how, and what a lot of the things of technically how to do certain things. We can't even have that conversation here.
They know it too.
We do.
No, they know that.
Well, not everybody doesn't know.
Yeah.
But we do have classes, when we have our fourth Friday class,
which is why we do that.
Right, where we are.
Now, no, it's not. Whatever you've always done, you made that last Friday for people to meet in person. This is where we can have more direct and open conversation.
And we've been bringing in some, heavy hitters that know exactly how to and have demonstrated this, if you will, and so things are kept. Some people know how to do things within their own groups, and we want to put everything on straight on Front Street, and we can't.
However,
that's one of the reasons why I don't think we're successful.
Even when we present in the title, right?
We've
already directed them.
Yeah.
You can't read for them.
Right.
No, meaning like you read this, right?
Yeah.
How many over a decade we've been sharing even what you just read, and people will still act like it's news. Do you understand? Yet they've been living it, and rather than hold these people who they have been supporting responsible, they'd rather attack us for telling them.
Well, one of the things, my brother, that you should do is look at the title, which we've given you, the USC title, and now you know where to go and look.
Start
studying,
take responsibility,
and see what it says that you have not been applying to your situation. And that's how, folks, we drop in breadcrumbs.
And it's back to what people saying, even with the hybrid Europeans, even when they do their movies, they will come back with this retort. You can't say that you weren't told. And you can't say that you didn't willingly follow them after being told the truth. You'd rather attack the messenger rather than take responsibility for your affairs, to take care of your business when someone has told you the truth.
Right.
And yet you would attack the one who tell you the truth rather than take responsibility to exercise that truth.
Right. I mean, this was enlightening to me, y'all. I was having trouble reading it because trust and believe.
The small print.
Even with the glasses on, this print, I don't know if you would have seen it. This is so little you can't even see it. It's like, it looks, so I was struggling, but I have now a better comprehension and understanding of what this guy said and why they, unalived him, because
he was a representative,
one of them
of Ohio.
Right. He was one of them, but yet he saw, the fraud that was going on, and he made it public. And I guess they couldn't take it out of the records
because it's in the House of Representatives.
Yeah.
Now,
and they just hoped that people wouldn't read it anyway. Just buried.
Which is also why they spend so much effort. Here we are, ordinary people doing what we should be doing. Why is it that they spend so much time, even with the Southern Poverty Law Firm, directly, personally trolling and attacking us? Who are we? Informing the people on information that the politicians who have been monetizing them and actually sold them. What does this really also reveal? That the corporate operatives literally sold the people and their future property to the Federal Reserve.
I'm not sure what this is. It says you're not telling people about sacred covenant. Pactum de singularis kilum. I don't know what it is. You tell us what it is, Kevin Gunnell. Write it in there. You know, I don't know what that is. I know you might know. Yeah. A lot of times, you know,
you know, it's all,
and I'm not trying to
discouraged.
point you out, brother, the one that said what he was saying, but we're saying, you know, we don't want you to be disappointed, but this is all of this stuff all has a it relates. Why are things the way they are? You know.
In other words, the people, we're all suffering for the people not taking responsibility. And even with some of the responses that you see, they're still trying to put their responsibility. That's what they call the sacrificial lamb syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
They're always looking for a sacrificial lamb to sacrifice, to take their responsibility rather than help. Meaning that if we see trash on the street and we see somebody picking up the trash, and you'll see somebody standing in the doorway across the street and over here complaining on how they're picking up the trash rather than getting out there and help to pick up the trash as if it doesn't affect them. And they'll find, oh, she's picking up the trash with a red shirt. Why does she have?
Thank you all for joining the Brother L Global on our special presentation from Taj Tariq Bey and Dr. G. Hope you guys learned a lot. Continue to join us and follow us right here on Ravana_Ill at Brother L Global. Thank you and have a peaceful day. See you soon.